that it could never land in this highly improbable position.
That's cartoon logic. A phone landing in a highly improbable position, that's just cartoon logic. You might as well criticize Wile E. Coyote for running into the wall that's painted to look like a tunnel at that point. How come Wile E. Coyote ran into the tunnel? Roadrunner clearly just ran through that tunnel. So obviously it's not a wall. So I just watched the season. It's pretty fresh in my mind. Yeah, we're gonna watch Everything Wrong with Rick and Morty season 9. It's in certain minutes. That's always their thing. Everything Wrong with Super Troopers in 31 minutes or less. Everything Wrong with Supergirl in 34 minutes or less. 34 minutes. It's always something minutes or less. But Rick and Morty, it's like, I guess in 90 minutes or less, it's like a bit much. You don't really want to put that. Couple of other things about CinemaSins right before we get in is just noticing some titles and thumbnails of videos that are near this one. The one that is most notable to me is this one right before it, actually, was Is Spider-Man Brand New Day a Sin or a Win? CinemaSins actually reviews. Let's unpack that for a second. CinemaSins actually reviews. First off, this is the first time they're doing this, actually, 6 days ago. So CinemaSins is actually trying something new at the time that I'm covering them. And they're a very old channel. They're 13 years old. So they are trying to adapt. I guess they're kind of recognizing that their formula is very stale. These are not the kind of views. These are the kind of views that, I would be happy with as someone who's been doing YouTube for, really seriously for, less than 2 years. But for a 9 million subscriber channel, no, you do not want to get 50K views when you're a 9 million subscriber channel. These are not good averages for a channel of this size. CinemaSins is perhaps trying to adapt and change around their formula. And look, it got even fewer views than their other stuff. CinemaSins actually reviews got less. And I think that's almost sad because if CinemaSins is trying to turn over a new leaf, they're trying to do actually reviews, and we'll get into the problems with that in a second, but they're trying to do actually reviews, and that is getting less attention than their other stuff, by a lot, really. I mean, it is their least viewed video of all of these. It's not even close. What I want to point out with this CinemaSins actually reviews thing is that this is an indicator of their bit. And so CinemaSins thing is that they nitpick movies, right? They nitpick mostly logical inconsistencies, but there's some other stuff about quality and other things too. But it's mostly about nitpicking logical inconsistencies. And usually they're either straight up incorrect or don't have substance, are logical inconsistencies that just really don't matter. Basically, it's focusing on stories for the wrong reasons. It's taking stories way too seriously and ignoring things about stories like themes and narrative and all these things that are actually important to stories for the sake of just nitpicking little things. Generally, the issue with CinemaSins is that they are a shallow channel. That is the main criticism of them. CinemaSins has been a disaster for media criticism because people are looking at media the wrong way because of CinemaSins. That is the thing. The rebuttal to that, and I don't know where the rebuttal comes from, but the rebuttal to that is, well, CinemaSins is just jokes. CinemaSins is just supposed to be satire. It's supposed to be a character of a nitpicky reviewer, and it's just meant to make jokes. And I think that this is malarkey. I think that this is not a good defense for a couple of reasons. First off, it doesn't really come off like it's a joke. It doesn't it could, there could be moments where it comes off as a joke, but the average viewer is not watching CinemaSins and thinking that it's a joke the whole way through. And actually, if someone is watching CinemaSins with that in mind, I don't think they would enjoy it as much. How do you sit through an hour and a half of Everything Wrong with Rick and Morty season 9 and just be none of this is serious? I don't get it. I really don't. So I think that what is really happening with CinemaSins is that it is doing what really all content farms do, which is and CinemaSins is one of the oldest content farms. CinemaSins is taking the concept of criticism, which allows you to use footage from movies and TV shows that are copyrighted in order to make commentary on them, in order to make transformative content where you are criticizing or analyzing the media. It takes that and it does the bare minimum of that so that it can put Rick and Morty in their thumbnail and people who watch Rick and Morty watch their video, or it can put, any movie that it does. Star Wars, look, there's a Star Wars one, like it could put anything in there. 22 Jump Street. It's just taking these movies that are popular and doing the bare minimum with them so that people who are fans of that movie will watch their videos. And I think that's very cynical, because there is a strategy to that. Like I did that with SpongeBob. Like I got popular talking about SpongeBob. I used the popularity of SpongeBob to make myself popular. I did. That was part of the strategy. It's literally, I would say when I started making videos was no one knows who I am when I had 0 subscribers. So I'm going to make videos about SpongeBob. People will watch them because they know SpongeBob and then they get to know me. And then that's how you can make it it is a thing. It is a strategy. But the difference is that I used SpongeBob to provide commentary on the product. That is the way that you are supposed to do it. That is why fair use exists, so that people can provide commentary on products. And I think CinemaSins takes advantage of that. Anyway, CinemaSins actually reviews. I think that's just a way of establishing this bit of like, oh yeah, these videos are just jokes, but here's the serious ones. And I think it's a way of saying, no, we can do serious analysis. The other ones are jokes, but here's our serious analysis. So I think after the Rick and Morty, I'll check out some of this actually reviews. I didn't see Spider-Man Brand New Day, but I'll be able to. That actually might make it better because then I'm not going to be judging what they're saying based on if it's correct or incorrect towards Spider-Man Brand New Day. I will just be judging it by the quality of the criticism alone. I think that will give me the most objective way of looking at it. One other thing I noticed is that their most recent video, Masters of the Universe Doesn't Know If It's a Love Letter or a Joke, is not their usual title. Everything Wrong with the Sandlot in 25 minutes or less. Everything Wrong with Supergirl in 34 minutes or less. So CinemaSins is trying to change. That's very interesting. And I think as we go through criticizing CinemaSins in future streams, we will see some things that they're trying to do to rebrand. Oh, one other thing that is important about this too is that there's CinemaSins and TV Sins. Because Rick and Morty is a TV show. It's not a movie. And CinemaSins does movies. So they actually have, let's go to TV Sins. TV Sins is newer, 700K subscribers. As opposed to the 9 millions on regular CinemaSins. So how long has TV Sins been around? Oh, okay, 7 years ago. So oh, never mind. I thought TV Sins was newer. Okay, TV Sins is not newer. Yeah, TV Sins was a bad idea. If you are CinemaSins, this was a bad idea to do TV Sins. They should have just, with their business model, they should have just talked about TV shows on CinemaSins. The audience of people who want to see movies criticized and want to see TV shows criticized is like one and the same. They are very similar audiences. It's one thing if you have like one channel that covers gaming and one channel that covers movies and TV shows, because those could have very different audiences. Or like for me, like I have Jackson Finelli podcast where it's my stream content. And then Jackson Finelli, the main channel, is video essay content. Like it's a kind of content that's very different. I think it's very odd that they have TV Sins. Like TV is cinema. I know it's like not like if it's like a cartoon, like cinema is kind of movies. But if you were called CinemaSins and you talked about TV shows, I would not bat an eye to that. I would not. Well, that's a TV show. I would not make that. So that was just a poor decision that they made 7 years ago, apparently. But anyway, I just wanted to hang a lantern on TV Sins, and also that they're collabing it, and that this Rick and Morty video is specifically on CinemaSins. That's the main channel that's posting it, and it's just collabed with TV Sins. So that even shows that I don't know. It's a weird business strategy. I think they're doing something that's not smart. I think they're just doing an incorrect business strategy. Future Jackson here. Turns out this is from the end of the stream. I only really watched the first episode section of this Everything Wrong with Rick and Morty season 9. So just letting you know, I did not debunk the whole video. It would have been boring for me to debunk the whole video. I made my point about it when I got this far, but just in case you were thinking I was debunking the entire Rick and Morty season 9 video, I don't end up doing that. But I hope you'll enjoy what I do anyway.
Beth accepting that Rick is capable of repairing the entire neighborhood, planet, and temporal multiverse, but not a quick cement job on their own driveway. Morty
You know what? I'm not that mad about that one. I wanted to be mad about that. The nitpick is like the reason that they have cracks in their driveway is because it's just kind of like a detail of their house. You know, like that's like it. But like, I don't know, man. If I was like watching Rick and Morty with like a friend and they made that joke, I'd probably chuckle. Not a sin though. You know, nah, I think I got to give it to them. I think I need to not be too harsh. There's going to be so much I can legitimately criticize. That's not really, I don't need to start off by forcing one. Fine. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. Sure. Good joke. Good joke.
Morty survives this.
Morty survives this. 7-Eleven cup. What? Wait, what does that mean? Am I dumb? Morty survives this. And it's a 7-Eleven Slurpee. Rick would say fixing the pavement is beneath him. Oh, yes. He would. But you know what? I could still defend the CinemaSins saying it because it gave us something to talk about, you know? Am I missing something, or is the joke literally he's saying that 7-Eleven Slurpees are unhealthy? Is that it? Is that because that's a horrible joke? It's just a bad joke. If that's the case, I think we could just move on. Let's see if there's similar bad jokes.
This having a family pool with zero ability to sit around said pool. Where are the towels even going, Bethany?
Okay, this is getting a bit much. I'm sorry, I gave you the crack, but are you serious? Where do they sit around the pool?
I don't give 7-Eleven enough credit. You see what those ones look like in Asia? Like little grocery stores?
Assuming that the 48 countries spanning the 17.2 million square miles of Asia all have similarly styled 7-Elevens.
Okay, like, wow. Wait, this is so bad. Oh my goodness. Okay, I got my work cut out for me for this one. Ugh. I think that there is not value in taking things overly seriously like that and then calling it a sin. Like, I get what you're saying, where it's like a language nitpick where like if you say like we all get what Morty said there. Have you seen the 7-Elevens in Asia? They're like little grocery stores. So meaning that in like when you hear that, you're like, okay, like, oh, Japan, South Korea, China, like, yeah, like if you find a 7-Eleven in those places, they're gonna look different than the ones in America because they're like little grocery stores. What value is there in nitpicking that and saying like really in all of Asia? Well, he just said in Asia. So actually Morty wasn't even wrong. He didn't say every 7-Eleven in Asia. He said, have you seen some in Asia? Like that just means that there are ones in Asia that are like that. That is completely correct. You can't even nitpick that because that is just literally correct. That's my problem with it. You know, I could go for a little like, you know, specific like grammatical correctness or like words should mean things. But I think what Morty said there still made sense. I think that's really ridiculous. And this brings me to, I have just realized the reason why that was so dumb is he's only saying it to give more numbers to the sin counter. He's just like, we know this, right? Like if you're just saying something to reach a quota and that thing is not meaningful, then you have done nothing. If it becomes obvious that you're like, lots of things have quotas, you know, like for example, an episode of Rick and Morty has to be 22 minutes to fit into the Adult Swim time slot with their ads. That is a rule that when they write the episodes, it has to be 22 minutes. That means that if they write an episode and the final product comes out to being 19 minutes, they have to add 3 minutes of content to that episode in order for it to hit that quota. But if you're a good writer, what you write there will be authentic and it won't come off like you're just writing it to meet a quota. Or sometimes it will come off like you're writing it to meet a quota. Sometimes there could be a bad episode. Sometimes there could be an episode that has too much filler and you go, oh, they just added that because they had to reach the time. If the audience notices that, which I just did with their weird Asia 7-Eleven thing, then you have failed as a creator. Are the things he notices just sins? Yeah, he calls them sins. A sin basically just means like something that should not have been done. That's a sin. Using the word sin to mean like nitpick or like something that the show did wrong. And it's really stretching that definition to its fullest.
Rick is acting shady because he wants to hide who he's messaging on his phone, which is odd considering he waited until Morty finished speaking before even attempting to hide what he was doing.
Yeah, because then you wouldn't see what? Because then you wouldn't see that he put his phone down in the shot. That's just worthless. That is just worthless. Is this what you want? Okay, let's imagine that scene the other way. Morty walks in, he talks, and then Rick puts down the phone. And then it cuts back to Morty and he finishes his sentence. You're not going to pay attention to what Morty's saying anymore, which was an ad for 7-Eleven. Like, that's what it was. That's like a marketing thing. I think 7-Eleven paid for Morty to say that. You know, like, that's just how the scene is structured. I don't know. I don't think that, like, if someone, like, you know what I said about how, like, if someone was sitting next to me and they said the thing about the cracks, I probably would have chuckled. If someone said that to me and they were sitting next to me while watching this episode, I would tell them to shut up. Try to watch the damn show at this point, you know? And I think that'll be the difference between, like, you know, because, and that is important because CinemaSins is trying to be comedy here, right? They're trying to be like, oh, they're the silly, nitpicky friend. But if their nitpick is not enjoyable, even if it's correct, kind of, if it's not enjoyable to listen to, then the joke has failed. They're not even doing the version of themselves that they are claiming to be to get around the fact that they're a content farm.
Who are you texting?
Nobody.
Nobody is actually the only believable answer to this question from the man who is 99% robot, using his fourth kidney for his instant messaging.
What? Wait, why? Why? Okay. So the sin is that Rick has a robot body. Why would he not have a robot body? He's a science fiction guy. I don't know how that's a sin, and what does that have to do with him texting being nobody? He's not texting himself. Like, it's saying nobody is the only believable answer from a guy who is 99% robot. So it's saying that Rick himself is nobody because he's a robot, which also isn't true because he's still him, even if most of his body is robot. He still is himself. Like, why would he make a robot? He didn't make a robot clone. He made a robot to enhance his body so he wouldn't die as easily. So that doesn't make you nobody. And also, nobody is the person he's texting, not himself. So why would you? So you would still text a person who is a person, even if you yourself were nobody because you made yourself too much into a robot. We're 6 in, guys.
A weird response.
It's not weird. Privacy is a thing.
Citation needed.
What do you talk? What? What do you mean citation needed? Wait. Okay. So, all right. I'm going to take you seriously here. I'm sorry. I'm taking you seriously on this one. You don't get away with it's just jokes. Maybe if the jokes were funny. You know what the problem is? You wouldn't be able to make enough funny jokes as a parody reviewer. Like, if you, all right, let's say CinemaSins did what it claims to do well, which is be a parody movie reviewer where you are overly nitpicky. You would not be able to make a video for every movie and every popular thing. There would be certain movies that would be good for that bit. We were watching them do Star Wars The Phantom Menace, which is a very flawed movie, but it still didn't work, even with that. So you can't even really be the bit that he's saying that he is, because there just isn't enough to say that is that sort of nitpicky thing. Citation needed. What are you commenting on? What are you saying? And I think another problem with the idea of CinemaSins like just being jokes is that a joke is supposed to mean something. Jokes are criticism. Like when Family Guy makes Family Guy Star Wars, they either are making jokes that are just jokes that exist within like using the Star Wars characters, like they're making a joke about something else. But there are a couple of jokes in Family Guy Star Wars that are specifically about Star Wars itself. I'll give you a great example. There's a scene in Family Guy Star Wars where they're in the asteroid field and they're flying through the asteroid field, and it's like, oh, we're gonna crash into an asteroid, Han, we're gonna die. And Han, who's Peter Griffin, goes, yeah, we got 4 or 5 of the main characters on this ship, I think we're gonna be fine. And like, that joke communicates a truth about storytelling. In a story, there will be times where there are high stakes moments where there are multiple main characters in the high stakes moment, and you as the audience know that they're going to make it out of there. And that's not always necessarily a bad thing. A scene can still be meaningful even with that. It's pretty much unavoidable in any movie for that to always be a thing. But I think it's still worth pointing out. I think that's still worth pointing out as a truth through comedy. So whether CinemaSins is just making jokes or is giving serious criticism, it doesn't matter, because the path is the same place, which is trying to make a statement about storytelling. It's just one way of doing it is through comedy, and another way of doing it is through genuine criticism. Now, the through comedy route could make a joke about criticism itself. If you're playing a parody movie reviewer who's really pretentious, you could be making a joke about movie reviewers. You're making fun of movie reviewers. But when you just say citation needed after Rick saying privacy is a thing, like, what are you trying to say? What's the truth to that? Are you saying privacy isn't a thing? Are you saying Rick shouldn't have privacy? Like, try and think about it. Like, what is the joke trying to say? It's not really saying anything. And that's kind of why it fails objectively as a joke. I think Rick invades others' privacy. That would have been a better way to put the joke. It's like, Rick, you're one to talk about privacy. You have cameras everywhere in the house. It's still not a great joke because you're criticizing the character for being the character. But at least that's something.
That it could never land in this highly improbable position.
That's cartoon logic. A phone landing in a highly improbable position, that's just cartoon logic. You might as well criticize Wile E. Coyote for running into the wall that's painted to look like a tunnel at that point. How come Wile E. Coyote ran into the tunnel? Roadrunner clearly just ran through that tunnel. So obviously it's not a wall. Literally, that you might as well just do that at that point. You cannot, I reject it. You can't criticize cartoon logic unless it's funny. The joke itself is not funny enough to warrant this. A phone landing in an improbable position. That's just a thing that happens in cartoons.
Phone says 12:14, but the clock on the wall still says 2 p.m.
See, I can give you that one. Phone says 12:14, the clock on the wall is wrong. That's continuity error. Clock could be broken, though. Maybe the clock is broken. Let's say I give them 2. They have 2. Maybe 3. Maybe you can give them the lack of pool furniture, if we're being really generous. But let's say we got the cracks on the sidewalk, pool furniture, and the time being wrong. Is that really meaningful? Is that worth making a whole video over? I mean, we're only a minute in, but like, see how like low substance they are when you take out the ones that are padding? Cracks on the pavement was not valid. I think it was. I think it's a funny one.
The arrows in Jerry the Bard's body suggest that he was killed by Summer and not the Beholder.
So they're saying that in the intro, Jerry's killed. No, he's not. He's not killed only by arrows. So he's saying that since Jerry has arrows in him, he was killed by Summer. No, he wasn't. I will debunk that right now. Those arrows are smaller. Look at Summer's arrow. Summer's arrow is very long. So you're just lying. You're just lying, CinemaSins. Look at that arrow. It's just in his arm. If it was Summer's arrow, it would have gone well through the ground there. This implies that Jerry's character was just probably killed by something that is off the screen, or was killed by something that they killed afterwards and that his body is still there. So you're just lying, CinemaSins. Like, you're just lying. Again, when you're trying to hit a quota, this is the stuff that you resort to.
world's tiniest dartboard next to a canister that is probably explosive.
That's not a sin. What are you talking about? That's an awesome detail. I don't know if that's on purpose. Wait, why would that be a sin? It would be an irresponsible thing for a person to do. But a TV sin or a cinema sin should be something that harms the story. But the story of Rick and Morty is that Rick is an ass. If someone is an irresponsible, neglectful person, why would they check if there's anything dangerous next to their dartboard? Also, you wouldn't blow this up with a dart. What do you, I mean, maybe, but whatever what is this? This is a fire extinguisher. This might not even be explosive. It's so stupid.
You know Q, Morty, from Star Trek? Okay, so imagine a cosmic gay guy.
Not finishing this sentence and leaving me to wonder if cosmic gay guy was referring to Kirk or Spock. I shall be taking no further YouTube comments at this time.
Rick, I'm not.
I don't know who Rick was referring to. I haven't seen Star Trek. He wasn't referring to Kirk or Spock. Didn't he say the character he's talking about?
You know Q, Morty, from Star Trek? Okay, so imagine
You know Q from Star Trek. So imagine a cosmic gay guy, and then CinemaSins got all weird because Rick said the word gay. And then they preempted that they were going to get angry YouTube comments about that. It's kind of similar to that Alex Myers thing, where Alex Myers thought that people were going to get offended by one of his jokes, and he put like a little disclaimer for it. I think that's very telling when someone is like preempting that people are going to get mad at them for something they said. Q is not an obscure character. It's a basic Google search. Okay. I'm sorry. I've never seen Star Trek. I should watch it. I know. I should watch Star Trek. I know. I'm like, it's on my radar. It's one of those shows I just never got around to. I know. I got really into Doctor Who a few years back, but I never watched Star Trek. Okay. I'll look it up. I'll look it up. Oh, you weren't mad at me. You were mad at him. Still, I should do it too. I should do it too. Let's see. Who is a fictional character as well as the name of a race in the Star Trek franchise, appearing in the series Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Lower Decks, Picard. Okay. So not in the original series. So is Rick saying that Q is a cosmic gay guy? Like is Q considered gay within, is he canonically gay, or is like that? Did the actor who play him, is the actor who played him gay? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know why Rick is saying he's gay. He's flamboyant. So someone like Rick would flippantly say he's a cosmic gay guy. So, okay. So Rick referred to this character Q as a cosmic gay guy, and then CinemaSins said this.
The cosmic gay guy.
Not finishing this sentence and leaving me to wonder if cosmic gay guy was referring to Kirk or Spock. I shall be taking no further YouTube comments at this.
Was referring to Kirk or Spock. He was talking about Q, who is a character from The Next Generation, which I learned from a quick Google search as someone who's never seen Star Trek. Kirk and Spock are from the original series. So they're not even from the same set of Star Trek characters that Rick is talking about. Also, why Kirk or Spock? I'm spending too much time on this, aren't I? I don't know enough about what he's talking about to be offended as far as like that he's making fun of people, but I'll just be offended because it's not funny. I'll just be offended. I'm offended as a comedian.
We're starting season 9 with an Evil Morty episode. I love being forced to pause an episode and do homework to feel included. Keeping this.
Wow. Oh, that is so anti-intellectual. You would say that, CinemaSins. You would. CinemaSins can't follow the lore of like 8 episodes? Just say you don't watch the show then. I don't know what to tell you. You know that it's not the norm for shows to be like you could just watch any episode at any time. Most shows rely on you having seen multiple episodes to know what's going on, especially when a show is 9 seasons in. Rick and Morty is just kind of both. Like they have episodic episodes that you could kind of just jump in at any time, and then they have lore episodes. Should they not have lore episodes? Does every episode have to be episodic? Is that a rule, CinemaSins? Is that a sin for a show to have lore? I'm so sorry that this science fiction show about multiple universes has an overarching storyline. How dare they? How dare they try to give more depth to their characters? I just want to see random stuff. Don't watch the show then. Don't watch, like, watch Family Guy then. Like, Family Guy doesn't do that. And, like, that's fine that Family Guy doesn't do that. Like, I'm not even saying that as a dig, like, watch Family Guy because you're so dumb you can't follow shows. Like, no, if you just prefer that. But don't say it's a sin for everybody that you have to know stuff about a show to follow this lore episode. And if you want to say that it's a flaw, then you have to demonstrate that it's a flaw. Like, I've heard this as a criticism for, like, certain, like, newer Marvel movies, is that there will be people who will, like, be like, like, it's hard for me to watch some of the newer Marvel movies because you have to watch so many other movies to know who all the characters are now. And that might be a little bit more legitimate of a criticism because of the way that movies are structured, is that movies are, you might not be sure which movies to watch. And then the movie comes out and it's like, oh, the movie's new. I want to go see it in the theaters, but I got to watch 5 other movies to be caught up on who all the characters are. And like, I just don't have the time to watch all these movies. Like, there's some criticism there. I'm not saying I completely agree with it. It might be more fun that these movies connect. It might be, it might just be like, that might be one flaw about the movies, is that it makes them a little less accessible, but the positive is that it's a more satisfying movie experience. So like, it could be a net positive. I'm not saying that that is my criticism of Marvel movies. I'm saying that I've heard that criticism of Marvel movies, and I could probably give a little more leeway to that. But a TV show is a TV show, especially in the streaming era. Every episode that leads up to this Evil Morty episode, you could go on a wiki and you could find the list of the episodes. You could be like, all right, here's the first Citadel of Rick's episode. Here's the Rick Lantis mix-up. Here's the one where they talk about the Central Finite Curb. Here's the one where they confront Rick Prime. Like, you could find a list of those, like 5 to 7 episodes, however many there are, and just watch them before this. And they're episodes of TV shows, and like, it's fine, So like, I think this is just so ridiculous.
Cabling this consistently up season after season must be more work than just fixing it, right?
What's wrong with the cabling? Wait, are you serious? You're saying that this is bad cabling? Because he could have plugged in this wire down here?
Ideal hostage dimension where everyone's super trusting and never has to shit.
Not clarifying causation or correlation in the matter.
What? What is he talking about? Dude, is he just saying stuff? What does that even mean? First of all, that joke was funny. The joke about the hostage dimension, not what CinemaSins is saying. The joke that Evil Morty found a version of the family that are from an ideal hostage dimension because they're super trusting and they never have to poop, and that makes them good hostages. That is a very funny joke. And CinemaSins says to that,
super trusting and never has to shit.
Not clarifying causation or correlation in the matter.
Not clarifying causation or correlation in the matter. What does that even mean? What he said makes perfect sense.
There's a guy eating the multiverse. There's always a guy eating the multiverse.
Morty would be excellent at MCU cliche sins, as Rick and Morty the TV show is complacent in them.
More exposition.
So Morty would be excellent as MCU cliche sins. Wait. Okay, so he says, so Evil Morty says there's a guy eating the multiverse, and regular Morty says there's always a guy eating the multiverse. And the reason Morty says that, the reason normal Morty says that, is because the guy eating the universe is not the point of the story. Like the villain of this story is Evil Morty. So like the guy eating the universe is just like the thing that is like happening that Evil Morty is using over them and is making them go on the journey for. But when they defeat the guy who's eating the universe, that's not the end of the episode. The end of the episode is them defeating Evil Morty because he's the actual villain. So regular Morty going, yeah, there's always a guy eating the universe is downplaying the guy eating the universe, because the guy eating the universe is not the main threat. It's just reinforcing that. CinemaSins is pointing that out as Morty would be great at pointing out MCU cliches, which, has that happened in the MCU? Who's been eating the universe in the MCU? Have I missed something? Didn't they not go with Galactus as the villain? They pivoted to Doctor Doom. Because Galactus is the one who eats, well, he eats planets, it's Galactus. So they don't even do that in the MCU. Thanos erased half of all life in the universe, which was considered a very unique villain motivation, actually. It wasn't considered a cliche at all. It might be considered a cliche now because of Thanos. But one of the reasons that Thanos was popular was because his villain motivation was particularly interesting. But then it says that Morty would be good at pointing out MCU cliches. Okay, that's a joke, sure. But why is that a sin? The sin is supposed to be a criticism. They just do a ding every time they say anything. Like, if every time you say anything you do a ding, that means that your ding, that means that every time you say something, it has to be a sin. So you just can't say that because it's not a sin. It's just you saying Morty would be good at pointing out cliches. The pointing out of the cliche is not the problem with this scene. Morty is supposed to point out the cliche because the fact that it's a cliche actually works in the story's favor.
Rick and Morty, the TV show, is complacent in them.
I like how it says Rick and Morty, the TV show, is complacent in them. And the subtitle says complicit in them. I don't know which one is supposed to be the correct one. Okay, so complacent in them, that's the criticism. But it's not. Rick and Morty isn't complacent, at least not in this case. It's not complacent to this cliche. The cliche is not the story. The fact that it's a cliche adds to the story. If you were going to say that this episode is engaging in cliche, you would have to say how the actual story is a cliche, not the part of the story that is self-referential to being a cliche and is just used as a cliche to make the story work.
More exposition than I expected.
Morty needs to watch more Rick and Morty to realign his expectations accordingly.
Since when?
There's too much exposition, and Morty pointed out that there was a lot of exposition. I think you're just saying Rick and Morty has a lot of exposition and like that's bad. But like, is it though? Like, I need to see an argument. What is wrong with Rick and Morty's exposition? Even in that scene, like the way that that joke works, where regular Morty says that's a lot of exposition, is funny because it was a lot of exposition, but it still wasn't too much. Like, the exposition doesn't mess up the episode. You know, like when I was watching that scene, I wasn't like, this is too much exposition. Bleh. I think Morty's just being self-referential to how this episode has a little more setup than most of their episodes. But then you come in, CinemaSins, and you say Rick and Morty has too much exposition. But I'm going to need you to demonstrate how. In fact, I think that Rick and Morty, even at its worst, is very good at setting up exposition. Like, if Rick and Morty is bad at setting up its exposition, what is good exposition? What even, like, you know, like you can tell that they're just saying that because they're being like, yeah, Rick and Morty has too much exposition. Like, because you could just say that flippantly and someone would kind of believe you, but you haven't really demonstrated how. How does this episode have too much exposition? What is the problem with it? What lines were like, if I was to break down, like, let's say this scene did have too much exposition, I would break it down and I would say this line is superfluous. This part shouldn't have been delivered just by someone talking about it. It should have been delivered through, you know, show, don't tell or stuff like that. But just saying it has too much exposition is, first of all, a lie. It's lying. And two, it doesn't have evidence. And if there is too much exposition, you should have no trouble making the same arguments I just did. So why not make the arguments? Why just say it has too much exposition? And the only real answer is either you have no arguments, you are lying, or you're too lazy to actually do the work. And in both of those scenarios, you should not have a YouTube channel. You just shouldn't. There is no excuse.
Do you care about anything? I don't. That's why I make him do it.
If he didn't care, he wouldn't make anyone do it. That's the beauty of not caring.
I think it's trying to paint this like thing of like that he's a hypocrite, right? For saying I don't care, so I make Rick do it. But I think, isn't it kind of the point of Evil Morty? Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Evil Morty kind of care? I mean, he cares about self-preservation. So, like, if something's, like, eating the universe, like, that is Evil Morty's problem. Because it could probably become an inconvenience for him personally. But I think it's also, it's representative of that Evil Morty, like, does care, but he's like repressing it. So he's saying that's why I make him do it, make Rick care, not me. I think that's supposed to be also kind of the point. I'm not super up to date on my Evil Morty lore. I kind of need to rewatch a lot of the lore episodes. I've seen them, but it's a while ago. So I'm not super up to date on if Evil Morty does care, if he just cares about self-preservation. I think his motivations are self-preservation. I think that's a major part of Evil Morty, because Evil Morty killed his own Rick. That's like the main thing that Evil Morty did, is that he killed his own Rick and became Evil Morty. So I think his like main motivation is he wants to be left alone. So from that framework, that makes sense that he would care about a universe-eating monster, because that would mess with him. So he makes Rick do it. And then he says, I thought you don't care. That's why I make him do it. I think that does maybe indicate that he cares a little bit. Evil Morty. Well, because Morty has empathy. Like, that is a part of Morty's character, is that Morty, like regular Morty, has empathy. So perhaps Evil Morty is supposed to have empathy like how Morty does, but he's hardened because he killed his own Rick because he got fed up. So he adopts this persona of being Evil Morty. I don't know. These are like all open-ended questions, like, you know, because this would definitely be a deeper discussion that would require me to like have the show next to me and get like textual evidence and all that sort of stuff. So I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here, which is fine for a live stream format, but this is a presented video. Like, they should know what they're talking about if you're doing like presented video. I'm just going off of what they said here.
Parody Marvel's Galactus, the Living Tribunal, the Borg, the Phalanx, probably Ultron, and definitely all of the Loki TV show at the same time. But there's a point where it becomes a little try-hardy. Rick...
Nah, screw you, CinemaSins. That design was cool. That design was cool because it's kind of cheesy. It's supposed to be cheesy. That's the point, is that they don't take him very seriously. He's not the real threat of the episode. Evil Morty is. So they make it this like cheesy parody that is a bunch of different things together. That's not a real criticism.
Has laser eyes down. He can do so much now that I'm just numb to anything he does in these battles, including but not limited to being fully dissolved, losing limbs, regrowing limbs, and texting his fourth kidney.
Dude, like listing all of like texting his fourth kidney. That was what he said earlier when he said that Rick was nobody. He's doing a callback to an earlier bad joke. You're numb to the things that Rick does in these battles. What do you like then? You don't like the story. So if you don't like the story, wouldn't you like the parts that are the cool battles? What's wrong with the stuff that he does in the battles? The creative sci-fi battle stuff. What is wrong with it? Other than that, he does a lot of stuff. I really don't see the problem.
Evil Morty saves Normie Morty, suggesting that the feeling he earlier said was mutual concern?
Why is it a sin that he saved regular Morty? They're on the same side. Evil Morty's not trying to kill regular Morty. If Evil Morty wanted to kill regular Morty, he just would. But he's trying to manipulate Rick. So Rick's Morty dying would make that harder for him to do. So of course he would save Morty, because his motivation is self-preservation. And Normie Morty, as he called him, would him dying would be inconvenient for Evil Morty. So yeah, of course he would save him.
Easier you will be for the collective to absorb.
Trying this hard to explain away exposition in the very same episode that you acknowledge in abundance.
No, man, that's the point. Line is not to explain exposition. The line is to make the collective like corny. Like, that's the point. Is it supposed to be corny? No media literacy on this. You know, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Rick and Morty. My God. Like, he's actually doing the meme. Like, he's actually being the meme. Like, where he's not getting, like, it actually is smart that the writers of this episode used cliche to tell the story. And you're just not getting it by just saying, oh, that's a lot of exposition. It's not important to the plot that the collective can absorb you. It's important to the story because it reinforces the like corniness of this villain to further communicate that Evil Morty is the actual threat. CinemaSins doesn't seem AI written. Its writing feels the same. It does not seem AI written. That is true. These are authentic bad jokes made by man.
Shouldn't an object infinitely absorbing itself and therefore the light around it mean that we should just be seeing a black hole? This Sin thinks so, and it is way smarter than I am, so I'm inclined to believe it.
It's science fiction. Maybe the collective is a kind of matter that you can see when it does that, because it's science fiction. Do you actually think that, like, look at this shot? Nah, man, it should have been like authentically like a black hole where you just saw nothing. No love of artistic expression here. And it's just to say stuff. There's no way that when they watch this, they actually, like, their viewing experience was harmed by this. That's the only thing that these logical inconsistencies can really only matter. That's not even a logical inconsistency. It's more of a scientific inconsistency, which, again, science fiction is about breaking science. Like, science fiction does not exist within our laws of science. It has different rules. That's why it's science fiction. But even if it does, like, when you bring up logical inconsistencies, they can only really matter insofar as they harm your experience of the story. There's variance to that for sure. There are things that you can nitpick that are like you wouldn't really notice and wouldn't really harm the story, but like are important to nitpick. Obviously, there's a lot of variance to it, but like this looking this way with this explosion it does help the story because it communicates that they did this big climax. They defeated that big enemy, that big bad. Who, again, this is not the end of the episode. This is only leading up to the actual final battle of the episode, which is between them and Evil Morty. But this explosion puts a bow on that first battle that leads into that final battle. And if this explosion actually did look like a black hole in that way, it would have been less impactful. So what does this actually say? What do we actually learn from this? Are you saying that if someone is writing this show or if someone is directing this episode, they should have the animators make it a black hole so it can be consistent? Or so that it can be scientifically accurate and lose out on that part of the story that further communicates to the audience that they have defeated this enemy? I don't think I want that to be the main attitude of writers. I think the attitude of writers and directors and animators that do this is what I want to see.
Sin thinks so, and it is way smarter than I am, so I'm inclined to believe it. This restaurant, presumably...
This Sin thinks so, and it's way smarter than I am. But didn't you write them? What does that even mean? Do the Sins have a mind of their own? Stupid.
Also, I look forward to the live-action remake of this restaurant scene coming far too soon after the release of this episode.
I gotta give these
What does that mean? I don't know what he's referring to.
waffles some runway.
Characters continually refer to waffles that they never order and will never receive.
Wait, what? Why is that a criticism? I'm sorry, do you need a scene where Rick eats the waffles that he was talking about ordering? Why is that important to the story?
Time travel stuff.
Bragging about being shown something that's just sitting on Rick's shelf for regular Morty and the entire audience to see.
The one who does whatever.
That is not a ding. First of all, the box being there and Rick showing it to you are very different things. Like Morty could just pick up the time travel box and look at the stuff in it. He's not going to know what it does. Evil Morty is saying that Rick showed him the time travel stuff and told him how it worked, which we find out later in the episode that he did tell him how it worked, because that's actually how they defeat Evil Morty, is because of the time travel stuff, because of that line. So that doesn't make any sense. And also what Evil Morty is saying there is not, I looked at the time travel stuff. It's Rick showed me the time travel stuff. And the point of this episode is that Evil Morty is saying that Rick prefers him over Normie Morty. So just ignoring the actual story for the sake of a nitpick that doesn't even make sense. We see how bad this is for media literacy. And like, again, don't give me that it's jokes. There are people who watch this and they agree with it. And they will now watch this episode and they'll be like, yeah, Rick showed him the time travel stuff, but like it's right there, and miss everything about the story that is supposed to be the story. That's bad. He said live action because the restaurant's name looked like Disney. It's called Diney's. Are you serious? Is that what that joke so bad I couldn't even comprehend it? Wasn't the whole joke about the time travel stuff box that Rick would just be bored by time travel, which is a commentary about how time travel is overdone in sci-fi? No, there's a couple of things. There's a couple of reasons. So, time travel stuff. First of all, Rick and Morty are based off of Doc Brown and Marty from Back to the Future, which is a time travel movie. So, okay, so the meta reason for time travel stuff is because Rick and Morty is primarily about alternate universes. That's the main sci-fi thing that it does. Sometimes it's like other planets or the universe or all this sort of stuff, but Rick and Morty is very big on using alternate places with alternate rules to tell its stories and teach its lessons. That's what Rick and Morty is about. One of the things that makes it a good show is that it takes very seriously the concept of the hero's journey. Rick and Morty is actually how I learned about the hero's journey because Dan Harmon focuses so much on usually Morty going through a hero's journey in an episode. Time travel clashes with alternate universes a lot. If you have a story about alternate universes and you also have time travel, it can get really clunky because it's like now the audience is keeping track of not only that the characters are in an alternate dimension, but now they're also keeping track of what time they're in. Rick and Morty invented this concept of the time cops, where time travel as a concept is regulated within the multiverse of Rick and Morty, that there are specific powerful beings that exist to prevent you from time traveling, which is brought up in this episode. That is what makes the stories kind of work. Also, time travel is an easy way to get out of a lot of situations. The fact that time travel is not a thing that they can do to solve their problems does make it so that they have to come up with more unique ways. Because think about it, if Rick could just freely time travel, how many episodes would there be where it's like, well, why didn't they time travel to solve the problem? There'd be so many episodes like that where you would just ask, why don't they just time travel to solve the problem? And that would really mess stuff up. You know, whenever you have a very big power in a show, you always have to have some kind of reason why that power doesn't work to get them out of a situation. It's why the rules exists in the Fairly Odd Parents. It's so they can have a reason for something to go wrong in the narrative. So the time travel stuff box is just kind of a reference to that whole like, oh yeah, like Rick, like he fiddles with time travel, but he doesn't fully do it. And then there's a couple episodes that actually do address time travel, but because of the whole way that they treat time travel, it makes it it's able to keep that very contained. Whenever any sort of time travel thing comes up, it's contained to like either one episode or one moment or something like that.
It's honestly much more economical to have only a few guns and to fill the rest of the space with ammunition. But cool armory shot is cool, I guess. Also,
it's more economical to have a few guns and fill the rest of the space with ammunition. So they're saying that the amount of guns that Rick has is silly. It doesn't make sense, and it's only there so that the show can show you a bunch of different guns. And that it would make more sense to have more ammunition instead of guns. I could explain that away. I mean, yeah, you're correct that the reason that there's a lot of guns on screen is so that it would look cool. That is true, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. First of all, it could be a collection. You know, like people collect guns, like just for fun. Like that is a thing that people do. So Rick might just have a collection of different sci-fi guns. And maybe these three in the middle are the ones that he actually uses. And maybe they're just in his armory because, yeah, it looks cool. But also maybe certain guns have certain purposes. Like maybe some have different kinds of ammunition. Some work on different kinds of alien species. Like there could be a different purpose for each of the different guns. So, you know, like even that you can explain away.
when Morty can barely be trusted with an electric toothbrush and Rick is a weapon.
You live in the bunker now.
What are you talking about? Morty can't be trusted with an electric toothbrush. You made that up. That's just not a thing. Because they're being hunted down by someone very powerful and Rick needs his help to fight him. What do you mean? It's a sin that he gave his partner a weapon to defend themselves against one of their most like powerful enemies. Are you serious? Like that's your criticism? And then he says Rick is a weapon, so he wouldn't need a gun. Well, maybe the gun that isn't in his body is more powerful than the lasers he has in his body. Like, all of these things make sense. Just saying things to say things. You can debunk all of them. The only one he said that makes sense is that there were cracks in the front of the house. That is you're at 39 TV sins. You've said that there are 39 things wrong with this episode. I gave you one, and it's about the opening shot. This is a joke.
Something about Mary, Galactus, Borg, probably Ultron, definitely Doctor Strange, that you also squeeze in doing a paradise. Yes, everything is a reference. There are no original thoughts, but you...
It's a satire show. It's a satire show. Rick and Morty is a satire show. Yes, the things that they do are comedic takes on serious sci-fi concepts. That's the point. Because when you watch Rick and Morty, if you've seen the sci-fi concept, it enhances your viewing experience because you go, oh, I get the sci-fi concept they're parodying. Also, I don't think every episode of Rick and Morty is parodying a sci-fi concept. There's definitely some that are original. Also, at the same time, like, nothing is original. Like, all concepts are derivative of other ones, you know? There's only a couple. I mean, every story is just a person changing their perspective from a bad perspective to a good perspective, or being challenged to change their perspective from a bad perspective to a good perspective. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. That's every story. So, you know, you're going to criticize that about how there's nothing original? Like, just what a cynical take on, like, everything. This thing is similar to other things. Yeah, well, it does something new with it. It does comedy with it. That's the point. It's not stealing from any of these things, Rick and Morty. It is parodying these things and using it to tell its own story, which is like how media progression works. What a weird thing to complain about. Also, like, you are, you know, and I think what's sad about it too is that you are being correct by being like, nothing is original anymore. And like, that's not true in terms of concepts. It's true in terms of characters. How we cycle through a lot of the same characters and reboot the same franchises. But Rick and Morty is an example of new characters. Because Rick and Morty's got 9 seasons now. They've been around for a pretty decent amount of time. But in an era of like reboots and remakes and all that sort of stuff, which was very much the era that Rick and Morty started in and is still continuing in, it was a new thing. It was like, oh, here's this new show. We've had Family Guy and The Simpsons and South Park have been going on for 20 years, you know, now getting up to 30 years with a lot of those shows. And here's a new one. So like, you're almost not giving it the credit it deserves.
You can also space out those unoriginal thoughts through the season too.
Unoriginal thoughts through the season. Let's see you try, CinemaSins. Like, let's see you try. Let's see you make this. Look, I don't know if every reviewer should have to, by default, be good enough at like writing something themselves that they could make something better. I don't know. I certainly think that whenever I criticize something, I have a personal rule where I say that I only would criticize something if I personally believe that I could write it better. I don't know if I could write it better. I guess that would be for the audience to decide. We would have a lot fewer critics if that was like the norm. But I think that CinemaSins has earned a, what would you do better? What would you do better?
Scribbles look to be authentic, but actually suggest that the writers couldn't think of any good jokes to fill this space. Every house.
Why? It's a serious scene. You don't have to put a background joke every time there's text on a screen. That's a criticism. Not putting a joke in background text is a criticism. They're not funny. You're one to talk, oh, they don't put enough jokes. You haven't made a good joke this whole video. And you're criticizing them for not squeezing in a background joke when they didn't have to?
Every house in this neighborhood appears to be armored, except the one house Rick actually wants to protect. But cool bunker shot is cool.
All right, so this criticism is that the Rick and Morty house is not armored and the other ones are. Because that's the actual house. This is the real house. The other houses are fake houses. See, there's a thing around it. He brought the real house was above ground, and it went down into the bunker dimension. So it's just the real house. The armor, doesn't he put armor over the house later? Or the house already is armored, but it just looks like a regular house because it's usually above ground? Like, I think this house is as strong as the metal houses around it. It just doesn't look like that because it's usually on the surface, and they want it to look like a normal house, not a weird armored house, because that would probably violate their HOA of the neighborhood. So yeah, bunker shot is cool. This is a cool shot. Yeah, this is a cool shot that makes sense, actually. Where you see the defined Rick and Morty house, that's the house that they live in, that we recognize, and there's all this bunker stuff around that. Yeah, this does communicate the stakes of the episode. Great job noticing that.
It's a kind of body armor goo, so you can take some hits, but only some.
So now that the stakes are raised, you're giving your family less effective protection than the puffy nanomesh suit introduced earlier in the same episode.
Wasn't that more of a space suit? Wasn't really a protective suit. They're not in space. Morty had a space suit. And who's to say that the thing that Rick gave them isn't more powerful than Morty's spacesuit from earlier in the episode? He says you can only take a few hits, but did they say that the spacesuit from earlier is more powerful? I think that makes perfect sense. Take this thing. It means you can take more hits, so later on in the episode when they do take hits, it's believable that they're getting hit and they're not dying. And it doesn't really contradict the spacesuit from before because we don't know the actual defense capabilities of the spacesuit from before. There's literally nothing wrong with that scene.
Yell a slur, a bad slur.
Setting a potentially truly offensive gag up and then not having the courage to go through with it. Season 1 Rick and Morty would be...
I'm sorry.
Nothing about evil Morty suggests he would even blink at even the most heinous slur. In fact, I bet he's the kind of evil that bemoans the passing of a time where an evil Morty could slur to their heart's content.
Evil Morty does.
You know what's funny? I could almost give it that. The first one was stupid, saying that... Wait. All right, let's address both of those. So the first one is that they are disappointed that they didn't actually say a slur in the episode. That's what they're saying. First of all, that joke does pay off because later on they say, I'm glad we didn't have to say a slur. And they were like, did you have one ready? And they were like, yeah, we had one ready. Yeah, I mean, I had to have one ready. And they're like, Jerry, I think it was like, Jerry, what's yours? And then it cuts to outside and they're all mad at Jerry because apparently Jerry's was really bad. That is a way better payoff to that joke than them actually saying the slur. Because it wouldn't be funny if they actually said the slur. I mean, it would be funny to CinemaSins apparently, but I don't think it would have been funny to just hear them say a slur. The way they paid off that joke was way funnier. The contradiction that evil Morty would be thrown off by a slur because he's so nonchalant. Well, wouldn't it just more shock him, surprise him or something? Maybe it's more that it would be shocking to him. Like Rick is just aware that a slur is the kind of thing that evil Morty wouldn't expect, and that's what would mess him up.
It's annoying.
Is Bunkerton from this dimension?
I wonder if Morty's shield is as annoying as straining to hear the cool sci-fi Rick is saying over the mindless noise of whatever Summer is saying. And
dude, the reason you're not hearing what Rick is saying is because it's not important to the story, and what Summer is saying is a joke. What are you talking? It's a comedy show. You were just complaining about how there was too much exposition. And now it's going out of its way to be like, yeah, Rick is explaining stuff, but that doesn't matter. Let's hear the joke that Summer says. And you're complaining about that.
Unless he's canonically mastered the tech needed to bore through dimensional infrastructure.
Choosing this moment to insinuate Rick and Morty has anything resembling a consistent canon 9 seasons in is a bold move. I think
Rick and Morty has a very consistent canon. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as like animated shows go, get out of here. Are you serious? Where is the canon wrong? Where is the canon messed up? There could be an answer. There could be a place where the canon is wrong. I just want to know where. From what I can see, it has very consistent canon because it tries to. It tries to have consistent canon. It's a response. And that's a direct response to other animated sitcoms that don't have canon, you know, like Simpsons, Family Guy. They're all over the place. They do not stay consistent. Rick and Morty does stay consistent. That's a part of why people like it. A nitpick wouldn't even justify it. If you go back and you find like 2 or 3 examples of the canon being contradicted, that's not even good enough for what he just said. He said Rick and Morty does not have anything resembling a consistent canon. That is unacceptable if you do not have evidence to back it up.
Damn it.
That was like a reverse sin, right? So it said that was funny, so it was like a -1. I think I reject that as a concept. Okay, here's the problem with that as like a structure of your channel. So again, I'm just trying to take you seriously. I'm trying to take what you're doing seriously. Even if what you're doing is just jokes, that's still serious. Sorry, comedy means something. If something is just supposed to be meaningless, then it shouldn't exist. So I can't even take you at that. So sometimes they take sins off if they like something enough. But I kind of reject that because the final sin counter is supposed to be like the just amount, a numerical way of saying there's this many things that were bad about this episode. So the idea of taking one off because something is good, I guess it could make sense where it's like, yeah, the final number is going to be lower, so it means that's not as bad. Except, why was that the only one? Wouldn't there be like as many good things as there are bad things? Why is it just that? There's nothing else in this episode that was good except for that one funny moment. You know, it's just, I kind of just reject it as a part of the conversation.
You need to kill us right now, because for Rick, making me jealous was an act. But for you,
This amount of exposition spouting from the person who kicked off the episode by complaining about
That's not exposition. That's not what exposition is. That is a character accusing another character of their emotional motivations. Not exposition is revealing plot stuff.
always struck me as odd that Ricks don't do time travel.
not taking heed of that oddity in favor of f***ing around and finding out.
Here's what I...
Yes, that is Evil Morty's character flaw. That is why he fails. So that's not a sin. If the thing that the character does that makes them fail happens, that is not a sin.
There's no real explanation for why the temporal taints are so scary to Rick and Evil Morty. I mean, it looks like they're the reason Rick doesn't with time travel, and they're clearly able to subdue Morty. But the reason or logic behind the why of it all is apparently a testy matter.
But it is explained. These like little things that are like their guns are very powerful. They've been shown to be very afraid of them. We don't know what they do if they're fired. I'm pretty sure we don't ever see these things get fired. Let me know if I'm wrong. It makes so much sense. These guys are time cops. They can control time because they are the ones who enforce time being controlled. That would make them by default more powerful than anyone else. You can't run away from them because they control time. They could go back in time and make you never had been born. Like there are like things that they can do, right? And also like, that's fine that we don't know why they're more powerful than Rick and Morty and Evil Morty. Like it's okay for us to not know why. What matters is that they are. What matters is that they are an authority in this specific sense. They are very limited in what they do. They will only stop you if you try to time travel. They don't interfere with anything else. They don't interfere in any other subject. So there's nothing else that like Rick does where like these guys are going to stop him. So that doesn't become a problem in any other episode that they're more powerful than him unless it has to do with time travel, which is specifically the thing that the show wants to make a rule for. This is all good writing. It's acting like this is criticism when it's actually good writing. This has real negative consequences on the world. I think CinemaSins, people will make this joke where they'll be like the consequences of CinemaSins on media literacy has been a disaster. I think it's true. Straight up true. I think that there are people who, in terms of their media analysis, have been worse off because of CinemaSins. I really do. I think that there have been negative consequences, tangible negative consequences from the existence of CinemaSins. We watch their real criticism, what the difference is. Maybe we should check that out now. Let's see.
And 2 of your CinemaSins writers have thoughts.
So many thoughts.
And what better franchise to start with than the one that started all of CinemaSins?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Spider-Man.
Dude, 35 seconds. Like what the, just so much fluff.
Brand new and yet unnamed Winsengage.
We don't know where it's actually going to go.
We don't know where to look yet.
Oh my God, it's been a minute. Say a thing. So annoying. I like that YouTube incentivizes people to not do this. I know people people think otherwise. Like people are like, oh, I hate how YouTube like makes you have to like, cause like for me, so like in my videos, I always like get right into it. Like the first thing I say is like something substantial. You do a little bit of an intro and then you got to get right into it. You know, the faster you get like into the video, the better your viewer retention is. Whereas like a TV show would do a lot of this crap of like, I'm this, I'm that, hello, this, you know, or whatever. And I gotta say, I think it's good that YouTube incentivizes people to not do this, you know? CinemaSins like kind of gets away with it because they're a bigger channel, but also they didn't get away with it because this video did worse, and this is probably why. Most viewers click off in the first 30 seconds. On a good video, around 30% of viewers click off in the first 30 seconds. 30%. And that's on a good one. It could be 50%, you know, depending on it. I would say well, they only got 20K views. I would say it could have been 50%. Half the people who clicked on this video could have left. But I don't know. I don't like all this. Oh, we have the win in Sin. Just say what you think about the movie. All right? I don't have time for this.
Synopsis time, folks. The end of the last movie, Doctor Strange.
I guess spoilers, for all the Spider-Man stuff.
Now he finds himself in a world where his girlfriend, MJ, his best friend, Ned, the Avengers, nobody knows who he is. Appears to be happening with his powers.
So there's a lot of recapping. Like what you could do is you could throw in context while you're criticizing. I think that's a better way to do it. I think a lot of this recapping right off the bat is not good. If they do actual criticisms after all the recapping, it makes it a little better. Like when I criticize like no villains are safe for recapping, it's because they only recap. They don't do anything of substance. So like if all of this recapping is necessary for you reviewing the movie, then fine, sure.
That's all the synopsis I want to share. It is almost impossible to talk about.
Okay, I can give him that. You know, I can give him that. That's fair.
This movie without getting deep into spoilers, and I just want to scream about.
Okay, that's fine. You know what? I can give him that. I
want to start with the acting, which is not something I thought I was going to start with in a Spider-Man film. I love the performances in this movie so much. I was really worried that the movie would start to wallow in Peter Parker being really understandably depressed, but instead it dives into more of a detective Spider-Man thing. But when we do...
It's more of writing. You just said you like the acting, and then you said something about the writing. Acting is analyzing an actor's performance.
Tom Holland is great at being on the edge of tears at all times. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we definitely...
Okay, that is an actual thing to say about an actor. Yeah, I could give it that. That is a thing to say that, like, I think he went a little on. I think he kind of misunderstood what it means to say. I get what he's saying. He said that the acting is good, and he said that he thought that a lot of the movie was going to be like wallowing, but it got into more stuff, which is more of a writing thing. And then he said the thing about like how Tom Holland looks like he's on the edge of tears and he's good at doing that. I could kind of give it that. I'd say that that's substance. Could have gone more into it, but like, not horrible. It's not what we were just seeing with that awful video.
In this particular group with Ned and MJ and Spidey and all of that, there is this camaraderie between them that I felt it without realizing what was happening to me and what it did for me.
All right. Felt the chemistry between the friend group in the movie. Yeah, there you go. It's something. I don't know why we had to wait for almost 4 minutes for us to get to that, but I guess. All right, they did. You know what? I can even give him a pass on the recapping. You know, I'll even give him a pass on that too.
They were really comfortable in their roles, and it showed.
Yeah, it's so clear that the three of them specifically are friends off screen as well. Like, I don't know that we'll ever see that magic again. Zendaya and Tom Holland are together.
What?
What? And I just think that chemistry.
It's a little like, you know. So like it's just not my personal preference of how I like to see movie reviews. Like it's just kind of like being like, yeah, like they had good chemistry. They were friends off screen, and, you know, kind of going into like the celebrity drama of it, of like, oh, they're together in real life. Like, but that's a personal preference. Like, I am not saying that is not an objective criticism. It's just not something I would watch personally. But I always like to point out the difference between that I don't think that makes it bad content, you know? I think it's just a different kind of way of looking at the movie. But like that gives people things to think about when they think about when they think about actors being comfortable in their roles, and it's okay to think about the personal lives of the actors in the movie. If you care, if you care about how Tom Holland and Zendaya are together, like that's, good on you. Good on you that you care about something like that. Like that's your personal interest.
I think Zendaya, I would love to have seen more of her. She's always great. There's not a huge role for her in Peter's life at the minute for the memory loss reasons. Is a shame. I'd love to see more of her.
I'm going to disagree on that. I love the acting and I don't mind the character, but I am so relieved that I didn't have to suffer a love story in this.
This is my favorite.
Yeah, people hate love stories. Suffer a love story. It's a bit of a again, like I can kind of like kick back at it, but I'm not fighting that in the same way that I was fighting the other thing. Really not. But like, I think in general, just being like a movie shouldn't have a love story because love stories are boring. I don't think that's the best attitude. I get what she's saying. She liked that the movie didn't focus too much on like the romance plot on the love story. I don't know. I've always kind of enjoyed, even like Spider-Man's a weird example for that because Spider-Man very famously had that like the upside down kiss. So like there is a lot of romance in superhero movies that has been done very well. So I think the only issue that I would have with that criticism is that it paints love subplots as a whole to be like, suffer through, instead of being like, I think in this particular story, they didn't need to go so far into Peter Parker and MJ's relationship, and it was able to have other parts of the story focused on. I think that that's just a better way of saying what she just said there. But I will not ding it Jackson's Sins ding. I haven't given them any dings yet. I really haven't. This is just a very normal, basically podcast of two people talking about a movie. It's funny, when I watched CinemaSins, I was surprised how much I hated it. I thought that I was going to see some problems and overall be like, yeah, well, that's like fine. There's a couple of good criticisms in here. Most of them are bad jokes. Yeah. But I ended up hating CinemaSins so much. I think that they're awful. I think that they're terrible for media literacy, for criticism, for all this sort of stuff. And then it's like, oh, I'm going to watch their actually reviews. I'm probably going to hate that too. And then I go into it and it's like, oh no, this is just like a normal like podcast of like two people like talking about a movie. Now, okay. There's a couple of things to think about here too, is the only reason that it's these two people talking about this movie is because they're CinemaSins writers. So CinemaSins is propping them up. And the very reason they're here is because of CinemaSins. So does that really mean that they are particularly remarkable as reviewers? So now we've pushed past. So there's a line between what I would call valid and invalid content. So there's two kinds of criticisms. There's criticisms that say that a thing should not exist, and there's criticisms that say a thing should be better. When I was talking about CinemaSins, the video that we just watched with Rick and Morty, my criticism is it should not exist. That is a should not exist criticism. It is so shallow. It is so hollow. It goes into should not exist territory. Perhaps it could exist, but it would have to be overhauled so much that it would basically be a different thing. This has cleared the bar, at least from what I've seen so far. Maybe it could go under that bar in the next 3/4 of it. I don't know. But I'm going to say this cleared the bar. This passed valid content. It's valid content. It's two people. They're talking about a movie. They're making actual points about it. They're discussing things that are worth discussing. They're being fair to the film, all this sort of stuff. But from there, are they really that remarkable compared to other, like saying, I liked the acting. I think that they're good. I believed them as good friends. I believed everyone in their roles. Or even what she said, where it's like, I didn't have to suffer through a love story. Like, think about what I just said. I just had a much better way of saying exactly that. So does that mean that there is myself or other reviewers or other people who are just a little better at this? So now we're trying to clear a new bar. We have cleared one bar of it's valid content. But then you have to clear the bar of being quality content, you know? With anyone you watch, you should try to think to yourself, what am I getting from you that I really wouldn't get anywhere else? That's the question that I asked myself as a YouTuber that I believe has made me successful. Is that I asked myself, what do I do that you can't really get anywhere else? And I haven't seen that yet from this. Let's see if we do see that from this.
Absolutely loved what they did with the Hulk. Wasn't a big fan of it in Infinity War and Endgame. Love it here. Love Punisher. He irritated the pants off of me in this movie.
What?
Yeah, there was just, he didn't need to be here. He didn't need to be here.
Oh, that's interesting. Well,
He should have elaborated on a lot of that. Why was the Hulk good in this movie? Why was he not good in Infinity War and Endgame? Like, it's actually funny. It's kind of almost similar to okay, so you did a recap, right, of the movie, of the plot of the movie before, so that we know what's going on, which was fine. It was like a full minute of recapping. I would have tried to structure it differently. Personally, I don't like too much recapping in a row, but it's okay to do that if you are giving criticism afterwards. That's fine. Again, clears the bar. In the Rick and Morty video, they were like, oh, we have to watch all this Rick and Morty. We have to do all this homework in order to know what's going on. But like he just said, I liked Hulk in this movie, but I didn't like him in Infinity War and I didn't like him in Endgame. You need to describe why for two reasons. One, if it's not super fresh, like I actually know from Endgame, I know what he's talking about. In Endgame, the Hulk was like in this state of where he was permanently the Hulk. And he was like kind of like a normal dude, but he kind of looked like the Hulk. And he had a lot more control over his Hulk powers. And like I can tell that's what he's talking about, that like he didn't like about that. But also all I really remember about Endgame Hulk is that detail. So I'm not really getting what's wrong with that. Like what was the problem? Because I just even said it's about him controlling his Hulk powers. So what made that worse? What made that an issue? I could be on your side. I don't remember it too well for me to say too much for or against that Hulk bit, but I need you to kind of elaborate just a sentence. Like I know you're not talking about that movie specifically. You're talking about Hulk and Spider-Man Brand New Day. I get it. But you're saying that Hulk in Spider-Man Brand New Day is better compared to Hulk in these other movies. So I just need a little bit more of why he's good in Brand New Day as opposed to those other movies, rather than just saying he's good. I believe you. I believe that you believe that he was better, and I believe that you have reasons for it, but you need to articulate those reasons. And it's harder to articulate those reasons. It's harder to say, because in his mind, the reasons why he liked the Hulk in this movie and didn't like him in the other movies is in his brain already. The reasoning is there in his brain, but it takes a lot of effort to bring that out of your brain, especially if you're just talking off the cuff rather than writing it in a script. But either way, if you're going to talk off the cuff, you need to have, like right now, I'm literally doing that right now. It is very difficult for me right now to get the reasoning out of my brain. I could have just said, I think his review there was lacking, but that's not enough. I have to give you the reasoning, which I am currently using a lot of mental brain power to do so. I just think that is kind of the difference between a mediocre review and a good review, is like, he's saying these things that have substance, but it needs more to it.
Win on our win-sin gauge. I'm guessing it's the same for you.
yeah, definitely win for me. So that sin win gauge is looking pretty hot.
I get like pushback on this. It kind of this win sin gauge. I don't like the concept of using numbers to determine the quality of movies. I've never liked that. I've never liked IMDb scores. I've never liked Rotten Tomatoes. I don't like calling things a 10 out of 10. You'll notice that I never do it. I understand the communicative value of it, of saying like something is a 10 out of 10, like it immediately gives you an indication that it's good. I kind of like tier lists. I think tier lists are cool because it's just saying that certain things are better than others. But I always thought that just giving something a number it's just too many things to compare it to. I think tier lists are fine because you're comparing it directly to a set of other things. But I've never liked numbers, and this sin win counter is just another way of having it be a number. You know, it's just another way of putting a number. I just think that when you use numbers to describe something being good or bad, I think that you're just taking away from using words. And I think that words are just more effective. So I don't know. I don't think I'll be able to meaningfully like get people to stop using numbers to discuss things. But I just think that if that resonates with you, that using numbers doesn't help as opposed to using words, and just enough fewer people do it, I think that we could just have a little bit better media analysis. Because if you really do look at it, there really isn't anything that numbers ever do that words couldn't do. And I think that numbers just encourage people to look at things with their surface level number rather than deeply analyze them. Because if your only engagement with a movie review is looking at the number, then I think that you weren't engaging enough with that review enough for that number to even matter. You know what I mean? Like, it might just be like, oh, well, like, you know, someone could just look at an IMDb score and see like it's a 9 out of 10 or whatever. And it's like, well, like, maybe you shouldn't know how good the movie is then, unless you actually want to read the review or watch the movie and form your own opinion. Like, maybe you should have to earn that. Maybe you should have to earn knowing how good or bad something is based on a review of it, rather than just being able to look at a number or look at a sin win gauge and see what it is. I don't know. I think it's at best superfluous and not necessary, and at worst actively takes away from criticism.
Sometimes I feel like we get lost a bit watching movies, wondering what the character's drive is, lost because of action sequences or very, very, very annoying love stories or whatever the situation might be.
Damn, she hates love stories. It's such a subjective thing, though. Like, not like we talked about this with Alex Myers, where like there is a value to love stories. I don't know why that person doesn't like love stories. That's, you know, sometimes it's subjective. Sometimes it's fine. Sometimes it's just like not to your taste. I don't know. Love stories aren't my favorite. Like, yeah, I prefer more high drama to love stories. Like, I get it, you know. I don't have that much contempt for them, though. But I think every time, like, the concept of a love story comes up, you, like, poo-poo it with, like, this, I think that's not healthy to media analysis, because it makes you're just criticizing not a genre, because I guess it's superhero genre, but you're criticizing the very existence of love stories in superhero movies. And you need more reasoning than just it's a sappy love story or like it's bogged down with a love story. I mean, I get the logic. It slows down the plot of the movie in a way that you don't like, but you need to demonstrate that a little better. I think that point would have been fine if it didn't have so much contempt for the concept of love stories. You know what I mean? Like, I think if it just simply said, yeah, so like Spider-Man Brand New Day doesn't really focus too much on love stories. So that just gives it a little more time to focus on the other parts of the plot. I think that would be fine to say, because it's not saying that love stories are inherently bad. It's just saying that this particular movie didn't focus too much on a love story and it allowed for more time to be focused on other stuff. That's all that would be saying. But when you're really contemptuous towards the existence of love stories, you're saying that they should be present in any movie. I'd say the biggest criticism I have about Smart Hulk and Endgame is that all of that development happened off screen and we barely get anything as to how he evolved between Infinity War and Endgame. Perfect. That's a perfect criticism. It all happened off screen and we didn't see how he changed. There you go. That's what he should have said.
I just didn't realize he's a good kid. I had no idea. I had no idea that he's like somebody who is going to rescue a bad person that's just stolen a car.
Wait, you had no idea that Spider-Man was a good kid? I'm sorry. I need to make fun of that a little. I'm sorry. No, you know, maybe she's not that familiar with the franchise. You know what? Nah, I don't even, I'm okay. Like, I'm just saying that because I'm a nerd. Like, you know what? I shouldn't be mean. Like, that is, maybe she didn't. Yeah. You know what? I want to take that back. She should have elaborated more, but I get what she's saying. The movie showed that Spider-Man was like a good kid. And that's a real, like, even as I just like went, like, even as I was just like kind of clowning a little too much. And I'm glad I brought that back a little bit, because actually I get what she means. It's so universally known to Spider-Man fans that, like, yeah, like Spider-Man is like the good kid. Spider-Man is he's a superhero. They're the embodiment of the best of human nature. That is the point of superheroes. And Spider-Man, being a teenager, is the best of that. A teenager who chooses to be good and responsible. That is the story of Spider-Man. That's why people aspire to be like Spider-Man. And yeah, this movie showing that a little more does make that better, actually. No, she said it in a way that was like, that opened herself up for a little bit of that clowning, but I think in being a little more open-minded, I think I can give it that. The
best thing this movie does is pair him with that detective. Used to vigilantes being the bad guys, kind of like you're breaking the law even if you're doing good. But this detective is using Spider-Man as a resource, sees that he's a good kid. I think in general, Spider-Man is one of the most optimistic superheroes that we have.
I think this is pretty solid. I don't know, he provided evidence of other genres. He said what they did. He said what this movie did differently. That's the best critique so far, actually. I'm just going to jump through a bit. I don't think I need to watch the whole thing. Oh, they have like
She is
Jean Grey.
Wow, they have a thing on the bottom just for spoilers. It's a bit overly cautious, but I think I kind of get it. I bet people who care about spoilers respect that. Sure, I'll give it a pass. Spoilers, everyone, for Spider-Man Brand New Day, which I haven't seen, so I'm going to spoil it for myself.
Antagonists for the Daredevil TV show. But for me, they are a huge sin of the movie. Like, I think they are completely new.
Oh, okay. He says he didn't like the bad guys, or these bad guys. I don't know if they're the main bad guys.
Muted compared to what they got to do in Daredevil. One bloated bit, it's them.
Next spoiler for me is this damage control group.
Oh, I really would have liked to hear more about that. I think it's a little lacking. Okay, so he says that the bad guys
are a huge sin of the movie. Like,
the bad guys are a huge sin.
I think they are completely neutered compared to what they got to do in
They're muted.
Daredevil. Like, if there's one bloated bit, it's them.
Next spoiler for me is
I feel like that was just shy of... I feel like he could have said just a little bit more. I'd want one scene as an example. If he had one scene as an example, that really could have been good. But it was a real criticism. He said that the villains or those villains made the movie weaker because they were muted. I could get that. I would have liked a little more. But it does clear a bar.
My theory is that because Jean Grey is the antagonist of the movie, but we can't make her really the big bad because we want her to be an X-Men, they had to slip in Scorpion and the Hand so that Spider-Man had somebody to fight in the big set.
Okay, that's a very solid criticism. So they're saying that the actual big bad of the movie had to be shafted because of MCU stuff, because they need to use the bad guy later. So they had the other villains had to make up for it, and that affected them. That's a real criticism. I think that's enough. I think I've seen enough. I was surprised at how okay that was. That was literally just a podcast of two people talking about Spider-Man, like in a good way. Everything that I was saying was like pretty decently high level criticisms of like, you know, you could have done this better if you did this. But I could see someone being entertained by this. I could see someone sitting for 20 minutes and listening to these people talking about Spider-Man and having a meaningful experience that is supplemental to their experience seeing the movie itself. I could see that. I didn't watch the whole thing. Have I like really, I don't know. I could have found things that were worse, found things that were better. From what I saw, I did not hate that. Stark contrast to their average vids. It really is. I wonder that, and also this Masters of the Universe doesn't know if it's a love letter or a joke, which does look like a normal one movie sin counter. Let's end off on this question. This is going to be the first in a pretty decently long saga of discussing CinemaSins. We are currently planning on doing all of their Star Wars, at least for the 9 movies in the Skywalker saga. Me and my brother, because we're big Star Wars guys. I'll probably be revisiting them if they cover anything that I feel is really relevant to like what I do, you know? So we'll probably revisit them every so often. So this will be the beginning of a CinemaSins saga. You know, I like to cover channels multiple times. Could we see a CinemaSins redemption arc where they atone for this and move forward with maybe doing stuff that's more like this? And could they? Like, would it still be wrong? Because, I don't really know what's realistic here, because I think that CinemaSins is like a net negative for like the world. I think in order for CinemaSins to truly redeem themselves, I think they would have to delete like all of their videos, which I know that's not a reasonable ask. But like, think about like the best case scenario of a CinemaSins redemption arc is all of their videos are like this and they're never like this anymore. But they still would have literally over a decade of everything wrong with Frozen, everything wrong with Big Hero 6 that are all that same garbage, still getting viewed and making them money. It's a really, really tricky thing to ask, I suppose that would be a net positive if they moved away from this and moved into this. One reason that might not happen, though, they only got 23K views. Compared to their other videos, that was not good. They are not going to be incentivized to keep doing this, unfortunately. And it's sad, too, because those people are CinemaSins writers. Like, they're there, and they have good personalities, They were clearly passionate about the movies. They clearly knew at least enough about what they were talking about. I know there was some bias there. She didn't like romance stuff for some reason. He didn't elaborate enough on certain things. Like, there's criticisms of both of them for sure. Certainly not perfect, but I saw potential there. And they're CinemaSins writers. They wrote these awful jokes, these awful moments. It's because they're on a quota. Like, they are pushed to write 100 things for every video. So like the fact that I'm not saying it's good writing, but there is a point where you got to blame the person who's hiring them just as much, if not more than them. It's like what I say about like modern SpongeBob, where like modern SpongeBob will be bad. And I don't always bash the writers for it. It's like maybe the executives aren't giving them enough time. So maybe it's the same thing, is that these CinemaSins writers, they got a job. It's probably a very secure job as a writer, I think I wouldn't have the same like condemnation of a writer for CinemaSins as I would for like a writer for No Villains Are Safe. I think you should definitely maybe take a look at yourself in the mirror if you're a writer for CinemaSins, but also at the same time, maybe it's just a means to an end. Maybe it's just, it's probably a very secure job, I'd say, being a CinemaSins writer. Can't fully blame them for that. I don't know. This became like crazy nuanced at the end, right? Like we were fully bashing this channel, and now we see this like strange bit of potential from them. I feel like even at their best, they would never be anything more than like an unremarkable movie review channel, but maybe there's a place for that. I don't think there's a place for this, for everything wrong with Rick and Morty, everything wrong with this, with the nitpicking and it's kind of jokes, but it's kind of real criticism, and it all means nothing. I really think there's no place for that. There might be a place for this. Maybe some people just want to sit and watch two people talk about Spider-Man. And I think that there was enough substance in this one to justify that.